Composting is an entirely natural process. It's something that happens on the forest floors all around us. What we're doing is harnessing that process in our own back gardens, producing something that's rich, dark, perfect for our gardens to grow fresh fruit and vegetables and to mulch around shrubs. What we're going to talk about in this video is how to compost at home, where to put your compost bin, and importantly, what can actually go into that compost bin. So we'll start with where to position your compost bin. It's the first thing to consider when you start composting at home. It's very easy to go down the lines of putting the compost bin out of sight, out of mind. So behind the shed, somewhere at the furthest point in your garden. Actually, we want that compost bin closer, somewhere a bit more convenient, easier to get to, because let's be fair, the closer it is, the more likely we're actually going to use that compost bin and put materials in. You might want to put your compost bin on bare earth. You could also put it on paving slabs or on tarmac. The creatures will always find their way into that compost bin. Optimum is bare earth, but you can compost anywhere. Ideally, that compost bin wants to be somewhere that is partial shade, partial sun. We don't necessarily want to put your compost bin in the sunniest spot in your garden. It might dry out, but also that's where we like to sit out in the evenings. So semi-shade will be absolutely fine. It's important that when you put materials into your compost bin, you have a good mix of green materials and brown materials. So your green materials are your grass clippings, your fruit and veg peelings. They're very wet materials and then nitrogen rich. You need a good balance of those with brown materials. So these are the dry materials, carbon rich. It's important that we don't add materials like meat, fish, dairy, cooked foods to our compost bin. Now you shouldn't need to add water to a compost bin, especially if you've got a good mix of green materials and brown materials. The brown materials in a compost bin will help to create air pockets. It's really important that air stays within that composting process. So those brown materials will keep the air pockets there. If you've got, say, a cereal box, just stand on one end of it and throw it straight in. Don't worry about ripping it up into tiny pieces. You don't need to. It's the air pockets that are important. Now it's important to remember that the composting process takes between 12 to 18 months. So we need to be realistic in the timescales that we're expecting. If you want to speed up the process, then you can add more heat into it. By turning the compost bin regularly, you'll get more heat in the bin and you'll produce compost quicker. When doing that, you might produce compost in between 3 to 6 months. For more composting tips and advice, remember to visit our website, gardenorganic.org.uk.